dying strong out there in the streets every single day. I got you.
Yeah, I will defend my brothers. I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite. Bring it on. It's time to fight. As that alarm clock beeps and wakes you from your sleep, pull back the sheets. It's time to hit the streets. Dudes, fresh shave your face. Girls, put up your hair. Back breaking and aching from the equipment that you wear. Face to face with your locker, strapping on your vest. Pray to God it'll block a hollow point from your chest. Join up with the squad, that's the crew of the night. Here again, our evil man took another life. Got a price on your head, brother, better beware. Load up that Glock and prepare yourself for warfare. Spread trips to the concrete in this dead heat. Load up that Crown Vic and get back up on the beat. Ridicules what you get, not even a damn handshake. As the sun sets on that city landscape, nothing can stop you, snow, rain, or thunder. Gotta hold that blue line tight, you're the wolf hunter. I will defend my brothers, I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite, bring it on. It's time to fight. I will defend my brothers, I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite, bring it on. It's time to fight. No words can express the lack of respect. No arrest of a suspect's unchecked. They say you ain't shit and you always tell lies. It's so quick to pick up and call when victimized. Riots and protests, it's always us they blame. It's expected, not regretted when a hero cop is slain. Never freeze up in fear when everyone's stomachs in knots. Who else you know running towards the gunshots? You know you're not alone. Take a look around. Look past the hate that you feel surrounds your town. The civil unrest, it needs to be addressed. So obsessed with judgment in the form of protest. So quick to judge and point fingers and blame. Over rifles and knives, and yet we can't take aim. In the streets and the chairs, they can't be muted. We're on the marches when a hero cop is executed, huh? I will defend my brothers, I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite, bring it on. It's time to fight. I will defend my brothers, I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite, bring it on. It's time to fight. Every push-ups for justice, each sit-ups for peace. Yet prepared for that battle waging up in the streets. Push the memories aside, keep the hate out of sight. Always on prowl for evil that lurks within the night. They said God made shepherds so that he could protect the flock. To overwatch and keep track of those that he's lost. When evil brings the fight, you know it's outnumbered. Sink your teeth in his back. You're the wolf hunter. I will defend my brothers, I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite, bring it on. It's time to fight. I will defend my brothers, I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite, bring it on. It's time to fight.
Hey man, that song, that's a cop song, dude. That is my song. That, you know, I am a sheepdog. I protect my brothers. I protect the weak. Man, está pesada. ¿Has oído esa canción, Fernando? Have you heard that song?
I was listening to it right now. I was like, oh shit.
Está cabrón esa canción. You know what, Fernando? I think they're either related to cops. I'll send you the song. They're from San Diego because a lot of their songs are in San Diego. They have. There's something with cops because either Chula Vista PD, but I think they're cops. I got to do some more homework on them. But when I heard this song, Benny sent it to me. I was like, this is going to be our song because it's who we are. You know what I mean? Us as cops and you as a podcaster, what you're doing in Tijuana. But guys, before we get started, let's give everybody a warm welcome that's watching us. We got VP760. Saludos, hermanos. Desde Brole, watching us all the way from Brole. And we got our sister. Mil gracias por siempre apoyando a mi gente. Gracias, Ceci. Ceci has been following us from the very beginning, Fernando. She's from Riverside. Thank you. And we have our brother, Big Jim DeJanis. They call him Batman. The guy was a correctional officer at Pelican Bay State Prison for, I believe, 18 years. But this guy is a legend. A legend in law enforcement.
Gladiator School or something like that?
Actually, no. Gladiator School was Tracy, but this was probably Gladiator Dome, dude. I mean, it was probably worse than Tracy. They had the worst of the worst, and Jim DeJanis is watching us all the way from Thailand right now. And we got our big brother, our big VJ Juarez, another one that's been watching since the very beginning. He's working right now at the LA port, and he's drinking his ice water. For me, with the smell of diesel fumes to go along with it, he watches us. This guy right here, Fernando, this guy's a legend with the San Diego Police Department. Chris is probably about 6'2", 6'1". He used to weigh about 300, about maybe 280. Right now, he's lost a lot of weight. This guy is a legend. He worked gangs and he also worked robbery. Whenever we had a case that was hard to solve or basically the DA wasn't going to solve, they went to Chris Kilby and he would make a case out of it. The guy's a legend with the San Diego Police Department, and our very own Benny. Benny Cruz, our producer for both of our shows. Thank you for this wonderful song, Benny. We got Big Joe, 67, watching us all the way from Salinas, California. Bendiciones, Big Joe. And then we got Big VJ Juarez, says when he was younger, he was single, living a second home in Tijuana. He would go to Iguana Ranas. I know you're aware of that. Y andaba de cochino en Adelitas as well. I'm messing with you, brother. I know you're a Christian now, and God's forgiven and forgotten, brother. And we got our brother, Cocaine Cowboys, watching us all the way from the Philippines. He's right now, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, Chris, once again for watching us, brother. Robert Lopez, another legend with San Diego PD, a detective, a great person, a great police officer. We got Brian Fierros. I don't think I've seen you, pero
No, that's my
Bordísimo
fans.
presenta.
Those are my fans. I have a group chat with a lot of my fans, like around 50 of them. So I sent them the link and I told them to come support and comment.
Right,
I always
right
do that
on.
wherever I go. I always tell them to come subscribe and all that. Yeah, so that's part of every Bordiza or all of that. That's all my people right now.
That's your people. Órale, gracias,
yeah.
Brian. Hopefully you're going to subscribe to our channel. We got Fidel Santillan. Fidel Santillan was an ICE agent. For many years, he's retired now. Last week, he was watching the show from Mexico City. Gracias, mil gracias a Fidel una vez más. I hope to meet you one of these days. Aquí tenemos otro de la Bordiza. Andres, thank you. Welcome, brother. And we got Chalo, the former chief of police, our co-host on Tuesdays, former chief of police in Calexico. He's watching us at the courthouse right now with Mike Espinosa. Bienvenido, Mike. And we got our chaplain, Ruben Nava. The guy, I just want you to know who our people are. Ruben Nava was a detective sergeant with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. He worked gangs, he worked narcotics. When he retired, he became a chaplain. He did the majority of his career in East LA. And the East LA, that was probably one of the most violent commands for the sheriffs. He is now a chaplain at the East LA substation. He's a chaplain for the sheriffs. The guy's a legend, and he's our honorary chaplain. We love you, brother, and we admire you, and thank you for finding that great purpose in your life. And we got, and then we have Gordo Gordito. Gordo Gordito is a police officer in Chicago. He has over 25 years with the Chicago Police Department. Next month, he's going to be retiring, and I'm trying to recruit him to come to Tampa, but I think he's probably going to go to Texas. But he's currently a police officer in Chicago. And we got, órale, otro, saludes, gray liners, para el Bordo. And guys, I'm going to go real quick because we got to get into this show. We got Yoli C. Thank you. Good afternoon. Love your shows. Very interesting, informative. Thank you. You're going to enjoy tonight, Yoli. Alberto Flores, órale, gracias, from El Bordo, one of your guys. And we got Chris Hastings. Once again, hola, mi hermanos. Thank you, brother. And guys, if you come on, thank you for watching us. With that said, Fernando, we are honored to have you with us. But before we introduce you, we do what we do traditionally. And we're going to start off with Bobby. Bobby, first of all, are you off your diet now? Are you drinking still coffee? If not, tell us what coffee you're drinking and tell us the cigar.
Still dieting. I got a coffee from my California Gang Task Force coffee cup. Remember that?
Yes, of course.
And my cigar today is... I love this cigar. It's a box press. It's really dark. It's a Bellas Artes from AJ Fernandez.
Okay.
It's like a Brazilian Batafina with the Mexican Sandreas wrapper that they're using too.
Okay.
It's a good smoke. It's a full body smoke. That's a big stick. So
and
I haven't eaten yet. So sometimes these cigars te pueden dejar medio menso after about.
Yeah, I figure with no sin comer, I bet
sin
you
comer.
know, lightheaded me.
At least I use that excuse. Anyway,
Hey, Bobby, so does it have a spicy taste at the end? Tell me about that, because I've never had that cigar, actually.
this one is it's a full body cigar. It has more like I taste in my palate like an espresso, like a black, like a strong black coffee, a little bit on the tongue.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and for me, with a hint, especially when I'm drinking coffee. So, and that's what I drink. I drink my coffee black. So I get that. I get a little sweetness at the tail end, but that's what I get.
One of my camaradas, Carlos Chacon from San Diego PD, he used to always say, I like my coffee black, like the black cloud that follows me.
Yes.
Used to say that all the time. Yeah. Fernando, you know about our show. That's why it's called Ash Wednesday. We talk about the Lord because the Lord has done great miracles in both of our lives. I know in your life also, but we also enjoy a good cigar and we enjoy a good drink. And with that said, I know you're not drinking, but tell us what you're drinking and what kind of coffee is it?
It's just a dark French toast as well, just dark. And like the cloud that followed
like the cloud that follow you.
Some dark coffee for me today. I usually California kid smoke a little weed from time to time, but I'm not smoking right now. It's just because I'm inside the house also and doing it. But yeah, it's just coffee for now.
That's good. And you know what, guys? I went to Costco, and Benny always laughs because I always talk about Costco. I don't know about you, but Costco is my second home. I find excuses to go to Costco. Literally, my wife today was out of coffee. She goes, or when are you going to go? I go, when do you want me to go? She goes, well, we need coffee. I go, I'm on my way. I find excuses. So you know what? I bought this bottle, 1792, small batch, Kentucky bourbon whiskey. And so we're going to try it tonight. A ver qué bueno está. But guys, with that said, Fernando, salud. Bienvenido al show. And let's get the ball rolling, brother.
Well, Fernando, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Very happy to have you here, and I'm going to start so we can get going. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Where did you grow up? A little bit about that.
Well, my family, my grandma came from the south, from Querétaro, with my grandparents, and they actually settled in Tijuana. One of the first in my neighborhood. There wasn't a lot of it wasn't built there yet, so they're first generation there. And so back then they got their visas. My mom was born in Zona Norte, like 72, 71, I think. So she had her papers. And then after that, since my grandma could cross after that, she had my aunt and my uncle out here in San Diego. And by this time, my mom's coming to school in high school over here in San Diego and stuff. And then when she was pregnant, she had me in Los Angeles because we had some family over there. So she had me out there, but came straight back to Tijuana, went to school for a couple of years there in Tijuana, Colegio Inglés, right there in Playas. And then after that, it was from 3rd elementary on, I came to Chula Vista, Roar Elementary, Castle Park Middle, Castle Park High. And that was my life, the border, it kind of, that's where my name comes from, the name of the podcast. It's just this community of people that we grew up, for us, the line, it's just an everyday thing, we have family out there. We have family out in San Diego, but on Christmas or our grandma's house is out there, or childhood friends are out there. So I'm mostly a Tijuana kid. I just came out here to school, but I really hang out with my friends from school because I lived in Tijuana, So I just came to school and back. Even though I made some great friends out here, my life was really in Tijuana, But half of it was still in San Diego because of school. So that's kind of my thing.
Hey, Fernando, what high school did your mom go to? What school did she go to?
My mom went to Mar Vista.
Oh, okay. Imperial Beach, Mar Vista?
Mar Vista, yeah.
All right. Hey, brother, but you know what? We're Trojans.
Yeah,
Castle Park Trojans,
Castle
bro.
Park. That's crazy. Yeah, when you told me you went to Castle Park and everything, I was like, oh, man, that's crazy because I don't really meet people that, I know a lot of people that went to Castle Park, but not really like people like doing stuff like, podcasting or like that. So that was crazy. Yeah.
Hey, Fernando, growing up, did you live in Chula Vista or you lived in Tijuana? We're just coming to school here.
Yeah, we just came to school, but my mom was always trying to move out here. So she started with she got an apartment with her friend that she worked with at at the same job, so they share an apartment, and we would cross the border and stay there, like in the living room till it was time to go to school, and then I walked to school, with my sisters and stuff. And then after school, like it was like a 1-bedroom apartment, so her friend had the room, and we either had the other room, but it was just one room for like me, my 2 sisters, and my mom. So she would let us go to TJ, to my grandma's house. Out there, my aunt and my grandma crossed every day to come to work, so they would come and go. So we were like, hey, me voy con mi abuela, and she would pick us up, and we would go to TJ. So I always kind of like more TJ. Eventually, my mom got her house out here and everything, which is where I'm at right now, and she started a whole life out here. But grandma's house, was always over there, for all my childhood and everything was always. My block is in Tijuana, like in Los Altos. So that's what feels home to me. I mean, San Diego too. I have love for San Diego too, just because of school, but I came to appreciate San Diego more when I was a little bit more grown up. Unfortunately, after I was on probation, because I had to stay here, I couldn't go to TJ. So when I was here, I didn't want to feel like I wasn't from here. I was like, man, I want to make this home too. So I don't feel like, So eventually I made it. I kind of made it home. I don't have as much as friends and stuff like that, but I got a little. I can make it feel like home now.
Fernando, since we're talking about your childhood, what about the guys from Otay? Did they ever mess with you? I mean, because Castle Park, I mean, you have several barrios in San Diego. You got San Isidro, you got Imperial, you got Palm City, you got Iris, you got Shelltown, Logan Heights, OTNC, and so forth. But going to Castle Park, it was Otay. You know what I mean? Yeah. But Chula Vista was Chula Vista High School. Did the Cholos from Otay ever mess with you?
Nah, I mean, I knew some of them, but it's funny because right now that you're asking me, I kind of, like, on hindsight, I could, it kind of became like the jail thing, because it was, we were the Tijuas, like the Paisas, we were in it was the homies, and it was the Tijuas, because it was a whole crowd of us that we saw each other at the line, we saw each other at the border in the morning, we saw each other at the trolley, we saw each other at the bus, and then school, and then back in the bus on the way back home, so it was a whole bunch of, like, some of us didn't even like hang out during school, but we knew each other because we share the same ride to and from school, So we were the Tijuas. They're like, oh, it's like Tijuas. So if I ever got like checked or something in a trial, and they were like, hey, where you from, homie? I'd be like, nah, I'm from Tijuas, and they'd be like, like, that's a whole nother game, you know what I mean? Unless they were like high or something and they really wanted to fight, then they made it a problem. But most of them, like 95% of them were like, it's Tijuas, and I'll be cool with them because of that reason too. Like, we would be friends because I wasn't their enemy. So eventually,
and you know what, Fernando, that segues into, we're talking about your childhood right now. Bobby's going to go to the next question on the podcast, but before we go to the podcast, that segues into my next question. Well, it's part of the question is, okay, so you grew up there in Chula Vista. Well, they didn't grow up in Tijuana, but going to Castle Park, you had the different barrios, but you had the Tijuas, and then you get arrested. Tell us a little bit about your arrest, and then now you're in jail, and tell us, for those that are watching the show, about the Border Brothers, the Sureños, and how that changed. But tell us a little bit about what happened when you were growing up, how you got arrested. Tell us a little bit about that case, if you don't mind. I've heard you talk about
not at all. I mean, the thing is, I started getting into trouble. Like, I started liking that life, the street life and the stuff. I probably after, when I was younger and my dad left and he was doing bad and stuff like that. I kind of had like, I wanted to like fill that void of like a dad, like father figure and stuff. And I had my uncle. He passed a few years ago, but he was only 9 years older than me, so he was kind of like a brotherish. But not in a way, because like the age gap, he was doing some other stuff, and I was always like, when I was a kid, I was always the reading, creating, drawing, and very like by myself, imagining things, playing and stuff. So, I mean, when that wasn't around, my mom had 2 jobs. I didn't really see her a lot, so I was raised by my grandma, and in some temporadas. I started just being out there in the streets, with my friends in Tijuana, and we became real brotherly, we kind of grew up on that loyalty, like brotherly stuff. Like if they took us to juvie in TJ, and they take you for like one nighter. So if you have somebody to pick you up, they let you go. But let's say it was 4 of us and one of them doesn't have parents, so nobody's there to pick them up. the rest of us will call, like, I'll call my grandma and be like, hey, you know what, I'm locked up, but I need to stay with Frijolito because there's nobody here to pick him up, and I don't want to leave him by himself, you know. So we would do all that, and so that's kind of my first those were my first encounters with like prison and jail and stuff, because I like to graffiti. We did a lot of graffiti and all that stuff, and I was really out there in Tijuana, like in what they call tag bangers, what they call it out here. You know, we do graffiti and stuff, but we also like to like fight and beef with other crews and stuff like that. So you kind of start getting that, you know, that entrance or that intro to the life and to run-ins with the cops, and you start separating from thinking like, oh, these fucking cops, or you know, them seeing you as this fucking low lives, you know. And when eventually, like around 16, 17, this 2007, 2006, 2007, all this cartel stuff was popping up. The word was becoming famous, you know, because before that, the word cartel wasn't really like that famous. And then you start hearing all these corridos and all this new stuff. And my grandma had some involvings back in the 90s, in the early 90s, late 80s, with some family in Sinaloa, and they got in she got in trouble for that. She did a little bit of time and stuff. So I kind of heard some names. I kind of seen some stuff like, or not seen. They're not. It's just like in the back of my mind, you know. I just overhear talks. My mom had me when she was 17, and she's the oldest. So I was kind of like a little brother to that generation. So they kind of took me everywhere. With my grandma took me everywhere. She took care of me. So I was there with all the. I saw a lot of stuff that later I asked, and she was like, "How do you remember this? That was so and so's house." So that was like, I was like, "What's up with these big windows they had?" They were like, "Oh, they were bulletproof windows," you know. So I kind of started like putting pieces together and stuff. I read a lot, so eventually I read Jesus Blancornelas. I read like, you know, I start doing this stuff, and then I put two and two together with the corridos, and it was like, oh shit, it's crazy how this is all connected, because I was really more into like graffiti and like rap, you know, hip hop and that life. But then that's the life.
Fernando, this is all in Tijuana, right?
Yeah, this is all in Tijuana. Yeah.
¿Por dónde? ¿Por el Soler, en esa área?
En el Soler, en Los Altos, yeah, Soler, Altos, Infonavit, all that, you know, Centro, Zona Norte. I would walk all over, man. Back then, I'm talking about like before phones with internet, so we just walk everywhere, you know. It was that outside life, you know. So
hey, you know what, before you continue, one of our faithful listeners actually grew up in Tijuana. He says he used to hang out in la Zona Norte. Well, I could when he was younger, but aquí habla that let me bring him up real quick. He used to live in Calle Segunda y en el Centro.
Yeah, donde se agarran los taxis. That's where I catch the taxis, los taxis verdes in front of Catedral. That's where I catch the taxis to Los Altos and Infonavit. Yeah. So I mean, just doing all that and seeing like the gang life, like, you know, because the Los Angeles culture kind of like drips down to Tijuana and like the borders and stuff. So what I would relate to like the gang, like we didn't have Crips or Bloods, you know. Now we had El Tigrillo, we had El Cholo, we had Gente del P1, you know what I mean? That was like our version of Crips and Bloods and Sureños, and, you know, and that life that we saw in the movies or that we hear in the songs. So all our generation that were graffiti writers or like to tag and stuff, like the more violent ones started joining cartels, either because of family, either because, you know, they just grew up and started making money, and they saw, that's what happened to me. Like eventually when I started seeing the changes, I was like, man, I don't want to keep or going to jail for graffiti, you know. I might as well go to jail to make some money. And that's kind of how I started getting involved into, that's the switch. That's when the switch came. And it's actually one particular moment that I think that was the turnover that I've talked about in a few podcasts is the guy I was telling you about, that he just got out from El Cañaveral, that he did 16 years.
Yes.
His crew and my crew, we would fight on site. Like we didn't like each other, and they were close to our neighborhood, so we were always fighting with them. And I remember one day he just showed up by himself in a little suru, and he was talking to one of my friends and me, and he just came by himself, and he was like, look, bro, I'm here to like make some peace, because I kind of fuck with you guys. Like you guys don't give a fuck. You just as ruthless as us, whatever. Like, but I'm on another level. He said, I joined my family because his whole family was part of like the cartel. And he's like, I started working with my family now, and it's different. Like I could like disappear you guys, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he proved it to us. Like he literally got a radio out. I'd never seen a frequency radio, and like, you know, he got one out, and he told some guys like, hey, I'm looking for so and so. I think I found them, whatever. So two like Silverados pulled up in like 5 minutes because their neighborhood was close to it. And he's like, nah, we fixed everything. So they left. They were like, okay, aquí andamos, the typical. And that's when me and my friend were like 16, 17. I was like, oh shit, that was like, what the fuck happened? You know what I mean? And after that, everything changed. Like my whole perspective on like street life changed and everything. And that's when cartels came in the movie, and became really strong. And by the age of 19, I was at the MCC for alien smuggling. Not really alien smuggling. It was aiding and abetting because I was walking them across the border. They weren't in my car or anything. They were just like following me across the border. But I mean, I was lucky, to be honest, because all the wild shit that was going on in Tijuana and all that stuff. I got to MCC at a really young age, and then I did a few months, but I got 3 years probation without being able to go to TJ. So that kept me out here. And that kind of like, it just kind of made me see everything in a different perspective. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to, I was like, because the whole violent thing came like 2008, all the shootout, like the cartel, like broke itself. So everybody was dying, that there was a saying out here that said, oh no, Tijuana huele a muerte. Like nobody wants to go there right now because it was like Sinaloa right now, people that know each other really closely were fighting against each other, killing each other. And, like, if you ever were seen with somebody, if you ever asked a favor from somebody, you're part of them and you're dead. You know what I mean? Exactly what's going on in Sinaloa right now. It's crazy because I tell the people in Sinaloa, like, bro, we went through that in 2008 and it's 2025 and the same people are still fighting each other. Yeah. So I told him, like, man, it sucks. I know how it feels, but it's just a change that was eventually going to happen. And Sinaloa happened at last because they were in depth with, Garcia Luna and all this stuff. So like it got to them last, but it happened in Tijuana, it happened in Juarez, it happened in all these other places. And Tijuana was the first, it was when Leizaola and they made the security thing. They tried it out here in Tijuana first, which it really worked. He really, because he started with the police. Yes. That's why it worked, because he didn't really just go out to the streets. First, he fixed the guys that were with him. Then once he trusted everyone that was with him, he's like, right, now we go fight. So that, I think that's what really, really helped everything. But those 3 years of probation of me staying out here, it kind of really did like kind of calm me down. You know what I mean? Because I was just wild out there.
Well, Fernando, one of the things on our show, we believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. We believe in our Lord. And we believe that there's no such thing as a coincidence. There's no such thing as luck. You know what? Everything is purpose driven. We truly believe that. And by you listening to your story, I've seen you on the Danny Jones show. I've seen several of your interviews. You always talk about it. And one of the things that I got out of it was God working back in 2008, because those years were the worst years. I know because I was working in Tijuana during those years.
I mean, I even it's crazy because I've come, like, I get survivor's guilt. Just like people that come from the war and stuff like that. Sometimes. Like I say it in the podcast, like every year I have a friend that dies, or a couple sometimes, every year somebody that I know gets killed in a bad way. I have from 10 friends, only like one has been in an accident. You know what I mean? The rest, or one or two, like maybe natural causes or stuff like that. But most of them it's been a tragedy. So it gets to a point, there's been moments where I'm like, it's crazy because when I was a kid, I used to imagine, like I used to play, as a kid, I used to imagine, I love music. I had all the Source magazines and everything I had to do with entertainment. So I would imagine or play myself that I was doing interviews. I didn't know if I was going to be a singer or a rapper or something. I just kind of saw myself doing that, So when I'm actually doing it and I've been in all these wrong situations where I shouldn't have been and I've survived all this kind of stuff, I'm like, bro, like, I mean, it feels good that I'm still here, obviously, and it kind of puts some weight on responsibility where I'm like, damn, do I have a reason, or is there something I should, do, or do I have like a mission or something? I'm not very religious, but I like the things that abide, like the doing good and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, I really must be meant for something, and it just sucks because if I can't find it, like, why did I survive all this stuff? Like, there's places where I should have been, where I was supposed to be standing, or, little stuff like that. And there's friends where I've been talking to them on the phone, and then they leave their phone right here in La Cocina, and they go out to say what's up to somebody, and they get shot. And I'm like, bro, I was just sharing memes with this dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, so I've come to learn that it's survivor's guilt, or something like that, where it's like you just your mind races chasing this hotel, thinking like, why not me, or why me, or why am I here? Why, you know what I mean? And why him? Was he doesn't that special, or like, I don't know, man. It really fucks with my head. That's why I kind of like all these ex-military, all these all these talks, because it relates a lot, unfortunately, to what we live. Like I didn't go to war. I wanted to be a soldier. I remember when I was a young kid, when I was in elementary, really young, I was always carrying my guns, like toy guns and stuff, or like my parents will go out late, and when they came back like 1, 2 in the morning, they saw like a bunch of lights on it, and they would come in, and it was just me like with like all these kinds of guns. I'd be like, I'm taking care of the house, you know what I mean? Like I'm making sure nobody, And my mom would ask me like, hey, what do you want to be like when you grow up? And I was like, I either want to be an astronaut or I want to go to war. And she was like, to be in the military, you don't really have to go to war. You could be a cook, you could be a computer, or whatever. I was like, and what's the point of being being trained? And that was my logic. I always loved being trained and being able to do this stuff. Unfortunately, we're in my environment, it kind of led me in the wrong way, because what was available to me and what I kind of related to being a bad guy instead of joining the army and fighting for something. I found it in the streets, unfortunately. So,
but what, Fernando? I think this segues into Bobby's next question. But before we go there, Gordo Gordito, like I said, he's working the worst part of Chicago. He's been a cop there for 25 years. In Chicago, I mean, it's not as bad as Tijuana, but Chicago's blowing up.
I've seen it.
You've seen it. I mean, and he's out in the streets right now. He's out in the streets, getting ready to retire after many years. He says this: sometimes we don't see what God is doing at the moment until we look back. And you said, well, why am I alive? I have survival's guilt. And that goes into our next question, where Bobby comes in. I think I know the reason why you're alive. And I think what you're doing today is changing and helping and educating our communities. With that said, Bobby, it's all yours.
Yeah, Fernando, it's funny. I'm listening to what you're saying. Before I go to my question, I want to have a little input. When all that was happening in Tijuana, when all the violence was breaking out all over Mexico, but Tijuana was on fire, I was in Iraq. I retired from the police department. I'm in Iraq for 2 years. I was in Mosul, dressed like a soldier, rolling out with the military, avoiding roadside bombs if we could. The team I worked with, we hit 3 roadside bombs out there. And luckily, we didn't lose anybody. We got some bells rung. But I remember at one point, I come back to our base, and somebody had sent me an email from the U.S. They were looking for contractors to go to Mexico. And I thought, damn, I want to do that. I was so excited. And I called my vieja at home, and I told her, and she's like, are you crazy? They're going to kill you in Mexico. And I'm like, I'm in Iraq. We just hit a roadside bomb today. Are you the one that's crazy? That's how bad the perception was of not only Mexico, but Tijuana. She's like, she was worried that I was going to get my ass killed and go into Mexico. So, okay, I'll stay in Iraq instead. This is how crazy it was.
Yeah, my mom had a run-in like that with one of these guys from the liquor store. He was from Iraq, and I remember he asked my mom like, "Oh, so what part of Mexico?" She's like, "Oh, from Tijuana." He was like, "Oh no, Tijuana is like." She's like, "What do you mean? Like you're from Iraq?" Yeah, he's like, "No, but Iraq is different. Like,
thank you, brother.
Mexico is dangerous." It was like it's crazy,
All the liquor stores in San Diego Metro or here in Arizona now, they're all Chaldean. They're all from Iraq.
They're all Chaldean. Yeah,
they're all Chaldean. Anyway, to segue into now, how did you get started? This is the podcast, and like I said, I think. When you survive all these things, I really believe God has a plan for us. We may not see it. We may not want that plan. We might be looking at something else. But at the end of the day, I believe in my heart, God places us where he needs us. And which goes to, how did you decide this podcast? I would have never thought I'd have a podcast that, we share here with David. But I get a lot of positive feedback. A lot of guys in my profession reach out, guys that are struggling. Man, I had over the weekend, I had a real rough moment over a dream I had that is a recurring dream. I ran an anti-kidnapping team in Haiti. My team had to go out and recover a 12-year-old who'd been kidnapped, and these guys killed him. And when I reached into this ditch where they threw him in some water, I turned him over. His eyes are still open. I still see that at times in my dreams. And I had that dream, and it seemed so real, and I woke up. And in my dream, I was crying. But it's just, I could not sleep for about 24 hours after that. And it's just bad. But what made you decide? How did you do this? How did you decide on your podcast?
Well, I mean, in 2015, I lost two of my childhood friends. You know, one of these guys from the block that I literally grew up, and they were twins. They not the type that look alike, but eran cuates. You know, like so their house was like the kick spot. You know, we were always at their house. His mom Lupita, which I shout out, she's very Christian. She loves to help the people in prison and Tijuana jail and stuff. Actually, I just for the Christmas, I got her some money so she could buy cobijas and stuff. So she took back down there and stuff. I still keep in touch because she's like my second mom. You know, she saw another part of me grow up because we were always at her house. You know, if I would ditch school, I would show up at their house and stuff, and that was like our safe place. So when her kids, my friends, they got murdered, I just fell into like a big depression, you know, and I was going through a breakup, like the girl I was living with, I was breaking up and stuff. So this kind of like, you know, tocando fondo point kind of hit, you know. And by that time I was taking, I remember because like I said, I smoke weed. So I would buy weed at the dispensary and then go to TJ and at my house, and I was smoking, and then neighbors would be like, hey, me traes poquita, you know, bring me a little bit. So I kind of started bringing it to a few musicians. There's like a big music scene of norteños and corridos and stuff in Tijuana. So I kind of started like selling them a little bit. And when my friends passed, some of them guys that I was cool with, I was like, hey, I want to make them a corrido. You know, I kind of like I said, I always have this creative, always that, like, even when I was locked up, I would draw or escribir or write stories or, you know, whatever. But that creative drive has always been in me. So I started by trying to make them a corrido. I started getting to the music, like what does it need? What groups are good? I started learning about who knows how to play, or, you know, how does the guitar supposed to sound? You know, stuff like that. Not really like the logistics, you know, but I kind of got the ear for it. So I started getting to the music. In 2016, one of my friends, he's like, hey bro, I wanted to introduce you to a friend. You guys are gonna get along just fine porque tan igual de locos. That was his words. So he put me in a group chat with my friend from he's very famous from Grupo Codiciado. Right now it's just called Codiciado. Back then it was Grupo Codiciado, and he was barely doing his, you know, making a little bit of noise. But hanging out with him, he was the quiet kid that was always with the guitar, you know, and he was always like playing, and he has a mind for business and for the industry that I kind of lost when I left my music and stuff to be in the streets, you know, back when I was 18. At this point, I'm 25, 26 now. So me and him just kicked it off, and we became best friends to this day. But I was always like, I was his sidekick on that mission of becoming famous, you know. So I learned a lot about the industry and stuff. But what really moved me inside, it was like, oh shit, like I finally met somebody that lived off of his creativity in a positive way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because he was making very good money. He you know, he was living good and everything, and it was all of good work, you know. And also like singing corridos and stuff, that kind of keeps you tapped in the street. So I kind of still, you know, feels that ego of the streets of like still being a little bit knowing what's going on. So I was like, man, this is like just be living off of creativity. It's just fucking, I don't know. I fell in love with that, you know, but I never saw it in the neighborhood. I never saw anybody else that became famous or that actually made it out because of doing something either, you know, like that or positive and stuff. Because I mean, not everybody in my neighborhood was bad. Like in my family, everybody had jobs, good jobs, like construction jobs and stuff. But they don't really get you like out, you know. You live good, you know, you get a good life, but you don't really like get to see that making it out with like musicians and stuff like that, which was my case with my friend. So just after after 2016, I was just full on the industry with him, like the music and all that stuff. I was in the studios, I was in his meetings because he didn't speak English and he didn't really trust anybody else, any translators to translate for him but me because I was his friend. So I would learn a lot about these meetings, about deals and stuff. And but I was always into, ever since I was on probation. Actually, I got really into YouTube because I was like, I was trying to get back in touch with the people I used to listen to, Dr. Dre. I was like, what are they up to now? You know what I mean? I remember Dr. Dre had a podcast, and there was like satellite radio. I really love comedy, so I would listen to a lot of satellite radio, a lot of Def Comedy Jam, and all that. So I kind of had something known about the YouTube content. But it wasn't until 2016 and stuff where I really got into it, where I was like, man, somebody should start doing podcasts in Spanish, because I watched podcasts in English and they were doing great, but nobody was doing it in Mexico. And so that kind of kept me from doing it. And then I started managing a rap group because I also like rap, and I'm trying to get some kids out, some kids out of trouble. So I was like, hey, we're good at rapping, and we did our thing. But when the pandemic hit, podcast became really big in Mexico in the pandemic because everybody was home. So like a few podcasts in Spanish started popping out, and that's when I started getting the idea. They were like, oh, I think it's time, And I didn't really get a chance to start it till like 2021, 2022. When I was kidnapped, and around that time.
We'll go back to that question, but let's keep talking. Tell us about how you guys. Who was your first guest?
My first guest. Well, at this point, with my friend just being his sidekick, he became really famous. Like he was like a Justin Bieber in his prime,
Really?
So I've made a lot of friendships now in the industry. So at this point, I already had like a list of like either local musicians and a little bit more famous ones that I was like, okay, I'm definitely can get these 15, 18 guys with no problem, And I started with the first one was a beat producer, rapper. He produced music for like famous rappers that are right now popping, like Aleman and stuff like that. So that was my first guest. My second guest was
and dude, what kind of question did you ask him? Did you practice? I mean, were you doing it from your house? Well, I mean, where was your studio? Did you have a studio, or did you use Zoom?
At this point, I was managing a rap group, so we had one of the rappers. His family is a wealthy family in TJ, so they had a home theater, like a small movie theater in their house that they never used, but it was perfectly designed for a studio. So we made the studio there.
That's cool,
we got producers and stuff. So when it was time to get recording, I already knew like a few video producers and stuff like that. So there was one, Saludos a Chucuan, who believed in me. He lent me his equipment, but he didn't know how to produce a podcast. He knew how to catch video and how to catch audio, but he didn't really know anything about it. It was really fresh in Mexico for everybody. So I kind of did it that way, like he let me borrow stuff, and then he started charging me a little bit, but then the audio was not working because we didn't have an audio guy. I didn't know about audio. So there's like the episode 3 and 4, I think, where I have like the mics, but they're not working. I'm using the audio from the camera and stuff. I knew at this point, after I've learned from the industry and just being with my friend, I knew that this stuff was gonna happen. I knew that there's as much as you have it planned, there's always gonna come like little setbacks and stuff like that. But you just gotta, write it out, learn how to fix it, and write it out. So I start putting these out like that. The image was great, but the audio was a little bit off. But I mean, the conversations were cool because these are my friends, and I kind of already know what to ask and stuff. And I still I go deep. I've always been a fan of interviews, so I always watch interviews from like my favorite rappers or actors or politicians. I like politics and stuff, so I'm familiar with keeping up with the conversation and questions and stuff. So that's kind of how it started, but I didn't want to make it like a Joe Roganish. I knew my main topic were either music and street stuff, but I had like a politician there too. I had a Javier Batis, because I'm not close to like only rap music. Like I like all music. If you're great at what you do, I'm pretty sure you have a good conversation. You have a good story. So that's kind of been my way into like having the guests. What guests I'm gonna have and stuff. And since the street stuff and the cartel stuff is like a big niche, I started having guys that sang corridos, to like El Muletas, to like all these guys from back then. and just telling stories about them. Like, hey, what was it like when you went to play at his party? What was it like when this and that? So they started telling these stories about them. So I started getting all this traction because all these people, like, everybody talks about Sinaloa cartel and everybody knows their life. They're reading books themselves about themselves. But when you talk about the Tijuana, it's always more of a like only a few people know. It's very like it's very how do you say, very contained. The chisme is not really out there. So that's kind of how, like, okay, I'm gonna get these musicians to kind of segue into that. At this point, I started a writing blog where I tell stories. I was improvising these stories every Sunday, and I got up to 13 chapters because I improvised so much that I started forgetting. I didn't really have like a storyline or anything. So I was talking about a character that I had killed him in like 2 chapters before. So these stories were great though. They were fiction. They were kind of based on stuff that I knew, obviously from people. But I made it into a fake story, and it was doing really well. That's where I knew I was like, hey man.
So how would you do it? Would you just start the broadcast with you talking and show pictures?
No, this was just written. Like I would just write the story, and then I'll publish the story. Share on Facebook, Instagram, and people. I could see the insights. So I was like, oh shit, like 500 views. Like people don't read these days, and people were reading my stuff. And I even what I liked is that some of my friends, some of them are dead now, but a lot of them were in the cartel. They were doing bad stuff, but they were like, hey man, no me gusta leer, carnal, pero me gusta lo que tú haces. So I was bringing them guys to read. Like now, what it's like jumping in a pool. Like if you've never done it, you kind of like, but once you do it, you're like, oh, so I can swim here. Oh, so I can get from the the resbaladilla and stuff. So now they will read other stuff. Like I kind of pushed them into reading. So to me, that was something like, oh shit, like that wasn't planned, but I noticed how a lot of these people that didn't read, they were reading my stuff, and they were like, oh, they kind of felt like, oh, reading is cool, like I could read, and stuff. So,
hey Fernando, before I forget, how did you get the name El Bordo? Those of us are from Tijuana. I was born in Tijuana, in Hospital Guadalajara, 1960. But I know El Bordo. I know El Bordo. Benny knows El Bordo, but a lot of people don't. Where did you get the name El Bordo? And when you first started in 2022, was that the original name, or have you changed evolution into the name?
The podcast, I really planned it out. I already had like the idea of how entertainment industry works and stuff like that. So I already had I knew needed a logo. I needed a cool name, like a short name that is pronounceable in English and Spanish, and so I really did plan everything out. And there's this corrido. There's used to be a group called Los Plebes de Arranque, which the singer unfortunately passed away as well. He was kind of poetic when he spoke about the city. He also has a song called Doña Juana, where he describes Tijuana as this lady that's a very elegant, classy lady, but she does nasty things at night, kind of like. So that was Tijuana, and it's just the way he did it. I was like, oh man, this guy's it's cool, And he had another song called El Bordo because he met some friends that I know, and they took him to Zona Norte, and he kind of liked the vibe in Zona Norte where it's really wild. It's like a jungle, literally. So he wrote that song there. He wrote El Bordo at the Bordo, literally like 2 blocks away from the border. So from there, I was like, man, I just love this concept of what he did with the song. And then if you're from TJ, if you're a local like me and you say El Bordo, you're talking about the línea, El del Bordo, or like the tecatos that are there, the junkies and people like that. But if you're kind of from outside the Bordo, it's just the neighborhoods next to the fence, Soler, Los Altos, Colonia Alemán, Colonia Castillo, Zona Norte, Playas, Otay, La Libertad, all these old colonias from back in the day. That's El Bordo for like the kind of like the outsiders from there. But I mean, you're from Mexico, and I'm like, oh, I'm from El Bordo del Norte. I'm either from Tijuana, Mexicali, Tamaulipas, Chihuahua, from the border. So I just love that name. I just like the community that's involved, in the border. Like I said, people from San Diego and Tijuana just being so close to each other, like community wise, not like geographical. So I thought it was great. I mean, I still
that's
like
a great name, because those of us, like I said, that we from Tijuana, or those of us from Mexican American, dude, we know exactly. El Bordo,
and I've been there, man. Like I said, I walked the border. I used to hang out Zona Norte 2, 3, 5 in the morning. Like I know, I really put I mean, I'm grateful that I get to use what I like where I'm from in my art or in my
Yes.
creating thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
tell you stories about my neighborhood. Tell you these stories, good, bad, love stories. We got it. But it's just a different way of life. Like I always tell people on my podcast, in Zona Norte, it could be 3 a.m. There's kids playing. There's a tiendita open, and then the daughter of the tiendita,
Los tacos, tamales, de todo hay de comer.
and across the street, there's some guys going at it with machetes. You know what I mean? And then around the corner, there's like the pepos, the state police, like, beating somebody up. So it's just got all kinds of wild shit going on at you know what I mean, that you don't really
At
expect.
all hours.
Yeah. So I mean, unfortunately, but that's where we live. That's where I grew up, and I want to portray that, to the people in an entertaining way. I like telling stories. I want to be a storyteller. I want to write books. I want to make movies and stuff. So just using the resources that life gave me, in a way. I mean, that's the part where it feels like it's meant to be, like very religious stuff, like that's where it's like, man, like I was supposed to go through this so I could use this now in a way. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you, Fernando. I mean, Bobby's going to get into his next question right now, but before he gets into that's the last question for tonight, and we're going to end it because it's an hour show. But we're going to come back and we're going to talk at the end what we're going to talk when you come back. But before we go there, I just want to say, I mean, you got 23,000 people subscribers. That's hard to get. We've been at it for 2 years. We barely got 6,000. Dude, you got 23,000 people that are watching your show. I saw you on the I think it was Danny Jones show. I saw you on another one called Gangka or something like that.
Ken Gagnon, Mark Gagnon.
Yeah, dude, those guys were getting close to 1 million views when you came on. So, when you talk about, survivor's guilt, purpose, I mean, who goes on these shows, has 1 million views, has hundreds of thousands of views? You're making a difference. You know what I mean?
Your
show.
I really needed that, and these days I've been struggling, man. But
brother,
I really needed that.
I am telling you, I know a lot of cops that watch yours. A lot of cops are watching you right now. When they found out you were coming on, they immediately go, "Oh, I watch them." You got everybody from all of them, ex-cons, cops, nurses, doctors, people that are watching you. Believe it or not, you don't know the impact that you're having, but you're having a very positive impact. With that said, Bobby, it's all yours, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Real quick, check your message, David. Well, real quick, the impact that you don't realize you get. I was writing as working for a journalist. Was a journalist for a news company, writing about the border for about 2.5 years. Some of my stories, because the company was a big company, the story would go on Facebook to the company, and I was getting 100,000 views to my story that I was writing, because I wrote about 600 plus articles for this company. And one time I got a female out of Washington State who had familia in Michoacan, got kidnapped, her sister and a niece got kidnapped, and she reaches out to my email listed on there. I reach out to a comandante I know. Next thing you know, they're kicking in doors. They get released without having to pay a ransom. That's the power that the same type of platform I believe you would have. Amazing. You don't even think about this at times. You think I sometimes feel like I'm just talking to a small group, but I get emails, I get messages that are far reaching. And, we have viewers that are out of the country, which will take us to the next topic. I want to talk to you about these women that are getting killed. I know how things are in Mexico. I know how things are in Haiti. When that 12-year-old kid was killed in Haiti, we had a meeting with the government officials. They didn't want us to release that this 12-year-old had been kidnapped, shot in the head, because they were afraid it would hurt tourism in Haiti. And we're like, what tourism? There's no tourism here. And they were more concerned about a few people maybe going to Puerto Príncipe than the brutal murder of a 12-year-old kid. What are you seeing there in Tijuana? Can you hit on that a little bit of what's going on with?
Yeah,
you know what, Bobby? Before he answers that, I believe when you were in Monterrey, you had your hand in those Juarez killings. Can you talk a little bit about that, Bobby? Did you have your hand in that? Did some investigation with the FBI?
Yeah, we just had. We took. I went to. I was flying into Juarez, meeting with the state police there, the investigators, and introducing them to the FBI. because they had some leads that were running, but I don't think they ever got too far. You know, it's like they start running into a lot of interference within the government there. They start getting to a certain point, and all of a sudden, you know, it's like los frenos. They start breaking. Nope. Because they're afraid it's going to hurt their image for people to go to Juarez, and, you know, the people.
Or it's going to hurt the politician for the next election.
Absolutely.
People are going to lose their jobs and stuff like that. So
it's disgusting that they're more worried about their own reputation, their own political ambition, that, hey, let's find out there's a mass murderer killing women. And Tijuana, the same thing.
I mean, that's why I like, I get kind of a little bit upset when I hear people like, you know, when you hear about somebody dying in Tijuana, or like a girl or something, and, you know, you hear these comments of like, oh, she must have been doing something, you know, oh, out here they don't kill you just for nothing. I'm like, bro, saying that is disrespectful to other people that have lost their lives in an innocent, you know, that being innocent. You know, there's some girls that, you know, they caught their last Uber, you know, coming out of a party, and they never saw them again. No, she wasn't doing anything. She was like a nurse student and stuff like that. So people from Tijuana, like, we love Tijuana so much that we hate to say shit like, oh no, there's a lot of innocent killings going on too. You know, there's some guy shut up a food vendor just because they were trying to calentarle la plaza to his enemies. It's like, what kind of stupid shit is that, bro? You know what I mean? So I think the crime is so much, it's so saturated that people just kill because they know they're not gonna get caught, you know, and you get this abuse of, like, you know, catching these women in vulnerable positions, you know, coming out of a party or going to work early in the morning, you know, 4 or 5 in the morning, or catching an Uber to go to work or whatever. And at the same time, there's Ubers getting killed as well for their car or for their cell phone or stuff like that. So that's when I'm like, that's how I kind of behave friends with some reporters, or like Luis Chaparro. I'm like, bro, I know cartels are your thing, but there's this whole other thing that's fucked up, that's more fucked up, because at least the cartels, you know, they're killing each other at the end of the day, you know. But all these innocent people, like, or women and stuff like that should be more emphasized, because that's really like going out the way, you know, like that's just bad people going out the way to, like, to abuse the saturated crime that's taking over the city. You know what I mean? Or, I mean, you hear people about, like, oh, they shot somebody and they just left them a narcomanta, you know, and they weren't even in the thing, but, you know, that leaving a narcomanta is just like, you know, that joke that they used to say, I'll sprinkle some crack on them, and, you know, and they're gonna think he was doing something bad. So I think a lot of bad people, you know, that if they were in another place, they would be more afraid of doing their shit because they're gonna get caught. But in a place like Tijuana or places like Mexico, that they know there's like a 5% chance, you know, or something, that you get caught
or less.
Yeah, they kind of just, you know, take that chance. And it sucks because, like you said, instead of people in power actually trying to do something for this innocent people, they don't want to lose their position. They don't want to lose their political position. They don't want to lose tourism. They don't want all this stuff. Where it's like, bro, that doesn't matter anymore. Like, this could happen to your daughter. This could happen to your, you know, and it's not until it happens to one of their family members or something like that, or till it affects their community, you know, that they start doing something about it. And or they just fix their little problem and then they leave the rest as it is, you know. So yeah, man, I mean, growing up in a family where it's mostly women, I do fear a lot for, like, my friends, my girlfriends, or my sisters and stuff when they're out there, you know, and sometimes getting pulled over by the wrong cop, you know, or it doesn't even have to be like the bad people, you know. Unfortunately, in Tijuana, that's one of the things that, like I said, La Isaola did really well, was fix the police, because at least now you're like, okay, they're just a little rough, but they're not gonna fuck around because they're looking for the bad guys. They're really looking for the bad guys, you know. Now they can turn you into a bad guy. You know what I mean? So that's where it gets more scary, when it's not just the bad guys that you gotta look after. It's these bad guys with uniform that, you know, and your death or whatever is gonna go unpunished because they're cops, you know.
Hey, Bobby, you know what? With that said, we'll go past the 1 hour. Let's get into the kidnapping, the case that you want to talk about, if you want to. With that said,
yes. Before we go there, in Monterrey, I was there for 3 years. There was a taquero. We used to go eat at his little taqueria right there, little stand. And one day he got whacked. He was an old guy. And of course they killed him, narcomanta, and it's like, and as we say in Mexico, they kill you twice. You get killed by the bad guys, and then later when the people start with, estaba involucrado la joda. He
just got a new car. You remember he got the new car? Yeah, no wonder he got that new car. You know, they start coming out with
kill you twice.
This nonsense. And I mean, I've had that where my uncle was in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know, and some guys killed him because they thought he was close to a connect. So they thought he was the guy that was delivering the new product to that connect from, you know, and they shot him, you know, and so, I mean, like that, I can mention at least 5 or 6 other cases where I know for a fact that the dudes that they were innocent, you know? So, I mean, recently, Pepe Aguilar's son, he was doing some interviews where he talked about La Colonia Libertad. He's like, nah, man, there's a place where it's served. Like, they will shoot you if you walk by there twice. And he got all this hate from people from Tijuana, like influencers that were like, nah, bro, like that doesn't happen. Like La Libertad, you really got to be involved. Like, you know, all this stuff. It's like, bro, I just saw the news where they killed a taxi driver, some guy, because a taxi driver and a food vendor because they're trying to calentar la plaza, you know? People that they knew were innocent, they just shot them because, let's get more police in here, so they think it was them. Like, bro, go kill your enemies, bro. Don't be a pussy and go kill your enemies. Like, don't be messing with his innocent people. So, like, he got all this hate because he was speaking the truth. And like I said, I love Tijuana too, but I'm not going to cover for the bullshit that happens, especially when I've seen it, when I've been around it, when I've known people that do it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, hopefully we get another cop in Tijuana like Leizaoda that actually strains out the cops and we could actually focus on the bad streets, the bad things on the street.
The kidnapping. Let's go into the kidnapping. So
talking about the police. Yeah, talking about the police. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie and pretend I was innocent. You know, they found some stuff in my phone. I was middlemaning for some guys that they had guns coming from America and they were being sold to whoever. You know, some guns were to like some guys that wanted a gun in his house just for protection. Some guns did go to some bad people. I admit it, you know. But when you're middlemaning, like sometimes I wouldn't even see the stuff. I was just like, deliver this and have that, you know. And it's kind of a way of making money in Tijuana, just middlemaning stuff, you know. So I kind of had some conversation about that on my phone. I go to a swap meet with my friend. He's gonna buy a computer for his son because his son is a gamer, so he's getting a really like fixed computer and stuff. But there's a lot of extortion going on at the swap meet. They see 2 guys walking, me with my like Mata, with my MS tattoos looking, you know, I walk in the swap meet. So we just get surrounded by like 6 policías municipales. You know, they search us. Obviously, in those days, Tijuana, the streets were very hot, so we don't go out with anything. You know, I don't have like nothing on me. My friend had like a little vape pen. So for that, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna take you to whatever, you know, to the station."
La
so
comandancia.
Yeah, so they handcuff us and they take us outside. They walk us out of the swap meet and then they put us laying down in the bed of the truck, which was weird. And they took our phones, which is something else too. But we were like, okay, like it was just a vape pen. You know, vamos a llegar con el juez. We're gonna have to give him some money, and you know, it's just the hassle of the time, you know. But while we're driving, I see that we drive past the station. And then we go into La Sanchez, you know. So if you're familiar with Tijuana,
Sanchez Taboada, yeah,
you know, La Sanchez and Zona Norte is like norte and sur, kind of like, you know what I mean, like,
yeah.
So me being from the other side, I'm like, oh, bro, where are we going? You know what I mean? Like, why are we coming out here? So they take us to this cerro, like it was a dirt road, you know, and stuff like that, and they pull up to like this empty. We're on the top of the cerro, on the top of the fucking in La Sanchez somewhere.
And top of the mountain. Yeah.
Yeah, he has our phones now and stuff, and they're like, they start questioning me and my friend, which is funny because my friend, he's more involved with the Sinaloa side, and me, just my childhood friends and all the people I grew up with are more on the Tijuana side, you know, cartel wise. So they start asking us stuff like, "Hey, man, they asked my friend, I see you're getting messages about stuff you're smuggling. Like, we know you're onto something, and you too as well. Just tell us right now before somebody else gets here, because cuando venga el otro güey, al que le voy a hablar, like, there's not gonna be no break, so you better tell me now. So we told him like, bro, you caught us with a vape pen. We got $1,000. My friend had like $1,300 because he was gonna pay the computer. I had like $300 on me. We're like, just take our money and let us go. Like, why all this? What's all this stuff here? So he's like, okay, you're not gonna tell me? Okay. He handcuffs us again, lays us down again, and he just goes into his truck. And like 20 minutes go by. This 20 minutes have been really important for me in my life because I was mentalizing that I was gonna die. Like the place they took us, they're like opposites to where the guys that I grew up from. So I'm like, man, like they're gonna put two and two together, and they're just gonna whack us. Like we're in the place where they leave bodies, basically. You know what I mean? So these 20 minutes, I'm just really introspecting on like, man, I mean, at least I got a chance to like change my ways a little bit. My mom actually got to see another side of me because I was barely beginning in like, in the industry and music and stuff and living more in a more positive way. So I was like, man, I mean, at least I got a chance to do all that, and I was kind of like at peace with myself. I always kind of live as if I was my last day, show love to whoever you need to show love to, say everything you need to say, whatever. So that was one of the moments where I'm like, man, I've really been living, like if it was my last, because I was at peace, I was like, man, I'm just going to be another status, that's it. But my friend, he was really crying. He just had a kid. He was like, man, like, you think they're going to kill us? Like all this stuff. I was like, bro, just cool down, let's calm down. Ahorita los apalabramos, So we hear another truck pull up, and I remember I was wearing yellow sweats. So I remember one says to the other, hey, the guy in yellow sweats, don't hit him in the face because he's a U.S. citizen. So at this point, I'm like, oh shit. Then I mean, if we're about to get shot, they wouldn't worry about me hitting in the face. You know what I mean? So
right.
But I was like, but the beatdown's coming. So now I was like, man, probably the shot would have been better. I wouldn't not feel that at least. You know what I mean? So these guys just show up really rough. They start beating us up as soon as they see us. They beat my friend more because they could slap him in the face. Me, they had to hit me like in the ribs, the knees, places where you can't really tell I've been hit. So they just drag us out there. They put us in their patrol car, which was the state police, because I saw their uniforms, I saw their patches, and they just take us to another colonia called Las Huertas. I know all these locations because my Google Maps location timeline was on, and then later on I saw like all the places they took me. So they took us to the other spot, and that's where the therapy starts, as they call it. So they just go through our phone. They make us a locker phone. They go through everything as they like to do, even though it's illegal. And they just start putting all these stuff together. Like, oh, you did this. Oh, you're friends with this, whatever. So they saw a message in one of my messages that I was speaking to not to some guys, but some guys involved with the Tijuana organization. And one of the guys that was driving, the police that was driving, because it was three of them, he this I found out on afterwards. He was part of their organization, so he was in the group chat with the Tijuana guys. So when he saw that they were asking me about those messages, his two bosses, he went and took a picture of me and he uploaded it to the group chat of the bad guys. And they're like, hey, do you know this guy? Because he's saying he works for you guys, even though I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't saying I knew anybody. They were just finding stuff out on my contact list and stuff. So he's like, he's saying he works for you guys. So for good or for bad, I know some of the top guys I've known them since before they became criminals. Like some of them I know from the graffiti days. Some of them I know from just the school days and stuff, or partying. And they're like, hey, yeah, like two or three of them. They're like, hey, I know him, like, but he's not really like. They know I'm not really out there involved like that. So, yeah. So they're like, yeah, but why do you have him? Like, why is he there? Like, what's going on? So at this point, the cops, they're like, oh shit, like, because not like low level kids or guys spoke for me. It was the main dudes. So they started getting worried. I start getting hit less, and then they just start. I see that guy called like his comandante. He's like, hey, comandante, and then he put them to the side, and they kind of like with codes, I could understand that they were like, hey, they're asking about this guy. They're asking like, why do we have him here? And the comandante was like, give me 15 minutes. Don't answer them back. Just give me 15 minutes. So he comes back in the police car.
Hey, Fernando, like, cuando te dieron la calentada, did they waterboard you or did they just put the bag?
Just the bag. Just the bag.
Okay.
And they hit me. They kept hitting me on my stomach and the knees.
So you couldn't breathe?
And, yeah, man. I mean, that worried me because like I know they're not trying to kill me, but I could die on accident. You know what I mean? Like
was it the plastic Calimax bag?
No, it was just a black bag, and it was funny
A
because
black bag? Okay, because they used to use that one before, the Calimax.
I think they just grab anything they have on it.
Yeah.
My friend, he had the bag on him inside the cop car, and then they kept asking me stuff, and I'm like, you know how we do it. We pretend everything hurts more as it really is, and stuff. So I'm like, oh, I can't breathe and stuff. And one of them kept saying to me, he was like, nah, he's too calm, man. Give me the bag. So they went, and they literally, I heard when they took the bag off my friend, because he would. And then I heard the noise, and then they just came at me, and bam, they put it on me, and I was like, oh, you know what I mean? And, man, it's just one of the worst stuff. But yeah, I mean, after that, the comandante came inside. Once they had me back inside the truck, he was like, okay, so you say you had a gun, right? But I mean, at this point, they saw a lot of messages. Like they could have asked me for more money, even though I didn't really have it, but I kind of had the stuff where they could ask me for it, you know? And he went from that to like, okay, what do you have? You know, what can you give me right now? I was like, bro, I got a gun at my grandma's house that I leave it there for protection because there's a fucking trap house 2 houses from there. And I'm worried because my grandma lives there by herself. You know what I mean? So when I stay there, I have a gun there, you know, I don't really shoot it or nothing. I just have it there because, you know, wherever. I was like, I could give you that. He's like, okay, where do you live? Like, over there in Los Altos, whatever. And I told him like, hey, I have a really good friend. He's a psicólogo. He's a psychologist. He lives in front of me. He's my childhood forever. I could ask him to come inside and get it just so you guys won't have to go in. I said, that's my grandma's house. Like, that's family house. You're not going to find nothing else. It's not a trap house. It's not nothing else. Like, it's literally just my gun and like family stuff, you know? And I didn't want cops breaking into my grandma's house, you know? So I kind of convinced them to do that. They're like, all right, call your friend, tell him to get it out, and then we'll see him at the Oxxo. We did that. But when we talked about this and we're like, okay, we're going to drive you to your house, they drove me to a location they found on my phone, which was another friend's house, which he did have some stuff in there. But they kept asking me like, hey, is there stuff in there? When I looked up, because they had me, you know, with my head between my knees, and they made me put my head up, and they're like, whose house is that? And I saw my friend's house, and I knew they got because like a day before I was riding by his house, and there was cops around there, so I took a picture. I was like, hey, wait, te cayeron, okay? Like jokingly, like, did you get raided? And he has cameras on his home, so he sent me a picture of his camera screen. And he's like, nah, I'm watching everything from here, but I'm cool. So they had that, you know, they had the outside picture that I sent them, and they had the inside picture that he sent me. So when I look up and I see his house, I'm like, bro, no, like that's when I got scared because he's a little bit more involved with those guys, and I didn't want them thinking I was snitching, you know, because I wasn't. I already made it, like I already gave him my gun, like, and we're gonna be cool. But before that, we showed up there. So I'm like, no, bro, no. And I kept telling like, there's nothing here. So they just kind of did a U-turn and we left. And so that's going to be important on the later on. So now we go to my house. My friend gets the gun out. They pretend they pull him over and they're like, oh, they take his gun. And then they get in the police car, but they start acting like if they just rob him. Like if they lo asaltaron, you know, they go up to him. They're like, hey, ¿qué traes ahí? Que no sé qué. Like they take the bag and they run back to the police truck. And they start speeding off, and it's funny because they're like, "Oh no, go this way. No, there's a lot of cops this way. No, go this way." I'm like, "Bro, what? We're in a patrol car. What do you mean?"
These are the patrol car.
Yeah, like I'm like, so they're doing this getaway, like if they just did like some like a robbery, which they just did, and it was funny because I was looking at that, and then eventually they went to my phone. I saw a podcast. I was helping Gordo Villarreal write his book, so like, hables con el Gordo Villarreal y tienes un podcast and stuff. And at this point, I'm thinking I'm cool. I already gave him a gun. So I told the comandante, I'm like, hey, would you be down to be on my podcast? Like, and they started laughing and they're like, ¿Qué vas a decir? What are you going to say that I caught you dealing guns? So I put the bag on your head and I beat you up. I was like, if we're cool now, I mean, I don't mind. You know what I mean? Like, so they just started laughing and he starts going on. He starts telling me like, yo, I remember I used to chase Gordo Villarreal. I've been a cop for 20 years. He just starts telling me a story as if he was in the podcast. It was funny, but it was just like 5 or 10 minutes of bonding. When eventually, like, ya cállate, you know, started slapping me again, put my head behind my knees, and then they took. Awesome. Now we went to my friend's house. He gave him $3,000, and then they let him go at a Carl's Jr. over there by Macro Plaza, you know, over there by Siglo XXI and those sides. So when they let him go, the cop in the back, which he started following me, and I think he was a little bit more cooler. He was like, hey, so we're gonna let him go too, right? And they're like, no. And then they speed off with me still tied up in the car and my friend they let him go. So now I'm scared again because I'm like, what? Like, where are we going? You know, like I thought we were friends. You know, so they just took me a few blocks later to like an industrial place, and they dropped me off like in some factory streets. You know, one of the industrial streets, but they're empty and no cameras and stuff. So I was still thought I was gonna get shot because he was like, all right, bájate. So when I'm getting off, I won't be in my leg hurts and stuff. I'm walking slowly. I'm like, oh, I'm thinking I'm gonna get shot in the head or something like that. And then I just get off. They gave me my phone and they sped off. So I call my friend. He's like, where are you? Where are you? And I was like, I'm right here. Send my location. He picked me up. Now I'm checking my phone. These guys, the cops, to get off so they wouldn't get in trouble with the cartel. They told him like, no, he was snitching. He was telling us where your safe houses were at. That's why we went to that other guy's house, and that's why we did all this. Because they were getting yelled at because they're like, hey, why are you extorting people that I told you that we know? Like, why are you, you know? Mm-hmm. So they were like, no, he was snitching on your safe houses, and we are gonna raid some house because he told us and stuff like that. Where I was like, bro, you know, if I would have told them that, they would have raided the house. Like they've done it before, you know. If you tell them, yeah, there's guns in there, they're gonna go in the house, you know. But I told them like, no hay nada, and I took them to my home and I gave them my gun, you know. So I had to have this meeting. After that, I had to have a little meeting with the cartel to explain it to them that I wasn't snitching, you know what I mean? Yeah. And but my friend, he started having doubts because like, hey, wait, yo vi en las cámaras that the cops came through. I was like, yeah, I was there in the patrol car, pero why do you think they didn't go anyway? Like I told him there was nothing in there, like I you know. So eventually he kind of like let some time go by to make sure like they weren't gonna come back on him. Or like a year went by and he's like, hey bro, we're cool. I kind of overreacted and stuff like that. I know he didn't overreact. He was I think
within his means because he thought that you read it. But it's funny, these cops, they were not only dirty, they were thieves, but they were liars.
Yeah,
so to cover their ass, they were gonna put your life in jeopardy. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Wow.
So I mean, that was an experience, man. That was just some of the things where it's like, man, like it's crazy nowadays because back then, you know, there was a years where you were there where you're like, hey, I'm friends with so and so, yo soy gente de fulano, and you know, you would still have to give them some money, but they would let you go, you know. And this guy, not only were they trying to rob me, they almost got me killed, and they didn't even get me for a lot. They just got me for like a little gun, which is like $1,000 in the street. And it's like, bro, what are you guys doing, man? Like, that's the police that's patrolling TJ. You know what I mean? I mean, it's crazy because, I mean, like I said, to me, I wasn't innocent. I was doing some bad stuff. I know the game. I kind of know the game because they kept telling me like, hey, ya te la sabes. You know, you know how they say. But this happens to entrepreneurs. This happens to doctors. This happens to anybody that has money. This happens to anybody if they could, you know. My friend, he had some pictures from when he went to Vegas and he shot guns out there. They pulled him over. They found this. They're like, oh, dame dinero, I'm gonna turn you in, and because of the pictures or whatever. And he's like, nah, I'm not doing anything. So they took him to Edificio Verde just to waste his time. Like their ego is so like that, where it's like, bro, if you can't get nothing off him, just let him go. There's all kinds of guys that you can get stuff. No, you're not gonna. Okay, I can't get you nothing from here. Okay, you're still gonna waste time. 2 days in prison, federal. La Fiscalía, you know, that's federal shit. So it's like, bro, you know what I mean? Like these guys are worse, man. like criminals want to stay low key now. These guys are like, they're out to like I mean, what we used to say back in the day, like chilangos, you know, like you be scared of going to like the chilangos because they would say like, oh, guys from the big city son bien rateros and stuff like that. Yeah. Now we have that, you know. I don't even think it's just the chilangos. It's just or big city. It's just guys with power that know that nothing's gonna happen to them. That's why I'm saying like once another Ley Saola comes in, like it's all like a domino effect. You know, if the cops is good, if the government is good, they're gonna take care of the rest. You know what I mean? But
hey, Fernando, se nos ha ido el tiempo. We went past our hour, but you know what, man? It literally, when we have good guests like yourself, we go past the hour. It literally feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah, dude, I'll be back whenever you guys want, man. I don't have a problem.
No, you know what? Actually, we are. We're bringing you back, dude. We're bringing you back because we want to continue. Because the guests that you have, you had El Taliban, you had
Gordo Villarreal,
El Gordo Villarreal, and then El Número 7. You're interviewing him. You tell the story, El Señor 7. Dude, I mean, the things that you're putting out, I mean, it's all history about the carteles in Mexico and Tijuana. So we want to have you come back. I want to talk about the Arrellano cartel And I want to talk about how they were in the 80s when they started, how they were in the 90s from 90 to 2005, and then how they were from 2005, and then we go into the Carnival, and then we go into 2012, and we'll end it there. We're not going to talk about where they're at now because, number one, I don't want your life to be in jeopardy, but we could talk about the history. So we're going to bring you back, brother, and we're going to show pictures. We're definitely coming back. Bobby, any last words for, and I know I brought you back a lot of memories when you worked in Monterrey, Bobby, and we worked narcotics, and I know I was holding you back with, but you'll have them all yourself when we talk about the carteles. Any last words, Bobby?
No, I thought the cops in Haiti were the only ones who were kidnapping. I was there for 2 years. I ran an anti-kidnapping team there, and we arrested about 24, 26 Haitian cops, either current or former cops. And in one of the cases, they kidnapped a doctor, and the doctor kept, when we're debriefing after he got released, he was telling us they're cops. Well, how do you know they're cops? He goes, I could hear the police radio because they covered his head, and they kept moving him from one police car to another, and he could hear the APB, the All Points Bulletin for this doctor had been kidnapped. So they were getting out of the area.
That must feel bad, man. That must feel like, man, who's gonna save me now? You know?
Yes, no kidding. It's great. Man, great content. Oh my God, I'm cracking up with some of the stuff you're telling us. So that's it. Looking forward to having you back.
Fernando,
you guys will be on my podcast too, right? You guys?
Yes, we are. We are going to be on your podcast. As a matter of fact, don't leave us. Usually we say bye to our guests, but you're going to be with us till the very end. Before we leave, guys, one of the things that I want to really push, the owner of this restaurant, it's called La Central Birria, and I'm telling you, he's one of my best friends. He's like my little brother. I love him. His name is Oscar Armenta. He owns this restaurant. It's called La Central Birria. And I'm not just telling you, if you live in San Diego or in Tijuana, you want the best birria, tacos, menudo in Southern California. I'm going to say Southern, not better than Tijuana, but Southern California. It's right there on Hollister Avenue, La Central Birria. And if you don't like it, send me the bill and I'll pay for your meal. I'm serious, man. I know I've been to this. Every time I go to San Diego, no me saca mi esposa de ahí. Porque and I come back 50 pounds heavier, you know. Pero Bobby, next time you're visiting your son, go to La Central Birria. It's right there, right before you cross the border on Coronado and I-5, literally. Coronado and I-5, it's a block away from the freeway. Best birria around. And guys, before I forget, next week on the Gray Line, March 4th at 6 p.m., we have the life of a true law enforcement legend, retired Los Angeles Sheriff, Detective Sergeant Richard Valdemar. We're going to have 2 episodes with him. He's going to talk about his life story when he was in Vietnam. He was involved, I mean, in probably one of the worst hand-to-hand and face-to-face combat that they had in Vietnam. He's going to tell the story, and it's going to be a great episode. And Bobby, tell us who we're having next week. I didn't get a chance to post this picture, but tell us who we're having next week, Bobby.
Well, it's still tentative. Trying to get one of the guys I was going to bring on. His mother passed away, so I'm scratching him for next week. So I will looking to bring on a retired police detective. I'll find out tomorrow if he can come on, and it would be Jeff Dower. So, but I got some really good guests also coming on in the last week of March. I'm going to have a retired DEA agent, a group supervisor, the assistant, the ASAC. But he is featured in Netflix Narcos, his character, when they're taking down the Cali cartel. And he's going to be on, and he has a book coming out in June, and he's going to be a multiple episode guest on our show.
That's going to be outstanding.
Yes.
Yeah. Guys, with that said, Bobby, any last words?
No, just looking forward to having you back again and continue the buddy checks.
Yes.
And for sure.
Fernando, every time at the end of our show, we give advice to our listeners. Any last words you want to give our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, just like I said earlier, live your life as it was the last. You know, love who you need to love. Tell them you love them. You know, be good in the moment. You know, live that moment. And I think that really becomes powerful when time comes. You know, when you live like that for a certain amount of time, you really look back and you're at peace with yourself. And I think that's the most important stuff.
Amen. Without a doubt. And listen, like I always say, live a purpose-driven life. Live every day like it's your last day on earth. And I'm going to quote Bobby. What Bobby always was, Bobby was the one that gave me this saying that says, trust the process. No matter what you're going through, if you're high or if you're low, just remember, one day you're a hero and next day you're a zero, but the following day you're a hero again. You're not always happy. You're not always sad. No matter what you're going through, trust the process, but above and beyond, trust the author. And my author, our author, is Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you, his grace is indefinite. Trust in him. God bless you. We'll see you next Tuesday. We'll see you next Wednesday. God bless you.
Used to spend my nights out in the barroom. Liquor was the only love I'd known. But you rescued me from reaching for the bottom and brought me back. Far gone. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey.